Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show, financial information for today and tomorrow. I'm Bobby P. Kinzer,
And I'm Thomas Doty.
and we are the FITT Show, financial information for today and tomorrow, helping people get their finances in shape. How you doing today, Dote?
Man, I'm happy to be alive.
Man, it's good to be alive, because that means you got a chance, because if you did, it's kind of late then. But we had a good week last week, Dote. Last week's show was finding the right financial advisor. If you want to learn more about that, or if you missed the show, go out on Facebook Live and YouTube, and you can find it archived there. Some good information. Thank you, and welcome to everybody tuning in the United States of America and around the world. Yes, we have people from all around the world tuning in, especially people in Great Britain. That's about 1 o'clock in the morning, so they staying up late to check us out. Though really appreciate that. We got an interesting show. Man, would you rather be rich or wealthy? We hope to have a vibrant conversation about that. And like we always say, we like to make this interactive. And how you can be interactive on our show is by putting comments or statements or opinions or perspectives in the box. And the more you put in that box, comment box, the more we get traction based on algorithms with Facebook. So we appreciate that. And also click on the like button and the happy button. We really appreciate that. Whatever help you can give us, because we've always made this statement and just want to make it clear to you. We're not in this business, so we're not trying to make any money. We're just trying to provide information so other people can make money. We've been very fortunate, me and Doty, because of our careers have led us to information that was able to raise our boats, but not only our boats, we were able to help our families and other people. And we just want to share that information with you. So the more people you share this with, I believe the better off we all will be, because I believe in social justice, but also believe in equity. And the more we be able to have equity, I think that will allow us to have even more of a say. So, Dope, let's start off with the top of our show, where we always start with the favorite subject to some people when it's doing well, the stock market. How is the stock market working out there today, Dope?
Well, things have been going pretty good. It's the Dow for the week is up almost 800 points, 2%. It seems everybody has calmed down about the banking scare, and everybody's a little more secure in what's going on. That the Silicon Valley Bank was bought out, I think, by First Citizens, and there's still some shakiness out there in the banks, so still keep your eyes open for that. But right now, everybody seems to be okay. The NASDAQ was up the past week over 200 points, 1.9%. And as they go, a lot of the stocks, Microsoft's up 6, 2.2, Tesla's up 3, Apple's up 3 also, and Pfizer is still flat. But it's kind of interesting, Bob. We always talk about, staying in for the long term. If you look back to January, between now and January, Microsoft's up about 29%. I think it was around 222 1st of January. Tesla was down to 108. And Apple, I think, was down to about 122, somewhere around there. So they're all up considerably from early in the year when inflation was raging its ugly head. And it's still not under control. I mean, there's still going to be some more rate increases. So there's going to be more volatility in the market as we move forward. So I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but as we always say, you invest for the long term. You continue to invest. And when you see a down market, if you can pick out some good stocks and maybe add a few of those, when the market recovers, you'll be in pretty good shape. So the market's looking, if it closes tomorrow up, it'll be 2 weeks in a row that have been positive. So hopefully this is things moving in the right direction, but I still expect some volatility going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the market is, like we always say, it's like A W goes up, down, up, down. But the name of the game is consistency, and hopefully the ups plotted out will outweigh the lows, and that's how you get ahead. So stay, don't panic. I'm glad everything calmed down from the banking industry. I was getting a lot of calls, and now I haven't had no calls. I was getting calls, so many calls the other week, but thank God that they quiet the panic, which they call public confidence. Okay, let's get into our next favorite subject is cryptocurrency market. The cryptocurrency market, remember, the cryptocurrency market never closes. It's 24 hours you can trade. So these numbers, why I'm showing you now, they probably have changed, but these are our, as of 7 p.m. today. The cryptocurrency market is $1.2 trillion. It's down $23 billion, about 1%. And the Bitcoin last week was at $28,551, but it's down $651, about 2%. Ethereum, which is the number two, Bitcoin is still number one cryptocurrency, and Ethereum is still at number two, which is smart contract. Only about $41. It seems like these top 10 sort of go hand in hand, but Tether, which is a stable coin and is pegged to the dollar, it was at 1 cent above a dollar, but this week it's back to a dollar. Dogecoin was Elon Musk and Mark Rubin out there, the Dallas Mavericks was trying to push. It's still just been staying steady, and Shiba Inu look like the horse has left the barn on Shiba Inu, though. It's been standing there like for the last several months. So whoever got in on Shiba, and it's still at number 15, the people that got in like in 2016 and 17 and got out in 2022, they actually made out very big, though. I knew somebody who had put in $3,000 and it went up to $180,000, and they cashed out, so they made out. So, like we say, cryptocurrency is highly speculative. There's a lot of winners and there's a lot of new losers. So know what you're doing, and tread, softly, if I can say that. That's the best way to put it. So, though, let's get into the subject of this week, man. It's a good one because we saying, would you rather be rich or wealthy? Which one do you want to be, though?
Well, it's funny because the way people measure wealth is changing, and we're going to talk about a survey that Charles Schwab put on that gets into that question, and everybody wonders, are you rich? And I'm sure a lot of people think to themselves when they're by themselves, am I rich? What does that mean? But you never discuss it out loud. So you think about what's the magic number? What number is it that makes you rich? But that definition seems to be changing, and that's what we'll get into.
But let's face it, though. Let's face it. I think most people want to be wealthy, but it's like that old saying: everybody want to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. And what I'm saying is, a lot of people want to be rich, want to be wealthy, but they don't really want to put the work in that it really takes to really get there. And you find some people end up, with nervous breakdowns, and other people's have no problems, with making more money. So we're going to discuss that. There's a couple of surveys out there. I know we've mentioned this topic before, but we want to delve into it a little bit more, because once we get into it, you're going to find out that whether rich or whether being wealthy, we're going to get in and see what really determines whether you're happy or whether you're miserable. You can start it off, though, as we always do.
Yeah, well, let's start talking about the American dream, and that's embedded in everybody's head. I mean, it's in the dictionary. The American dream it's defined as a happy way of living that is thought of by many Americans as something that can be achieved by anyone in the U.S., especially by working hard and becoming successful. And I have a few thoughts on that, but I'll keep those to myself because it's not always as clear cut as that for some people. But let's look at the chart of net worth. Net worth. Let's take a look at that, Bob. Do you have that up?
In just a second.
Because the numbers are a lot lower than I thought they would be. I thought they'd be a lot higher than this for where people were as far as their net worth. And we've mentioned this before. Net worth is where you just take your total assets and you subtract all of your liabilities. And that's kind of what's left after. Take everything you own of value, subtract everything you owe. What's remaining is your net worth. And so, as you can see, the top 1% of people in the US have a net worth over $10 million. The top 2%, that number's around 2.5 million, which is not, it's not very high. And then when you drop it down to 5%, that's the top 5% in the US have a net worth of $1 million. So I venture to say a lot more people that we know are probably in that over 1 million than you would think. And I think with TV and media, you tend to see a lot more of the rich people than you do of the poor people. I mean, when you think that 95% of the people have a lower net worth than $1 million, that's pretty. It's a lot of people who don't have a whole lot, and there's not a lot of people who have a lot, but it seems like more because that's all you see on TV. And so when you see the top 50 is over 500,000, I mean, and if you've been working 15, 20 years, you probably have that in your 401k, and assuming all your other assets and liabilities offset, you'd still be in the top 50%. But it's just surprising to me. Did you expect the numbers to be as they are, Bob?
No, I didn't. Especially I know a lot of people that is in the top 10% net worth, because a lot of people I know been in their homes a good while, and they got a lot of equity in their homes, and their 401k plans did very well, and their net worth is definitely over 854,000. Matter of fact, I'd venture to say a lot of them people that I know is in the top 5%. And I'm going to say, this is not about against my friends, but most of my friends, they come from meager means, and they're doing really well, though way better than I thought. And I'm one of those people because I'm looking at this, and I'm almost in the 2%. And we all know that you are in the 2%. But this is so interesting, though. I just didn't expect for these numbers to be this way.
Yeah, it's surprising. Let's look at the chart by age, because that also kind of shocked me too. Again, I expected the numbers to be a little higher, and I realized this is average net worth. And as we concluded from the previous chart, there's a lot of people who don't have a lot. So if you're younger than 35, the average net worth is only $76,000. From 35 to 44, it's 400,000. 833. Then between 55 and 64, it finally gets over $1 million. And again, I was surprised, but when you take into account how many people out there who don't, there's a lot of poor people in this country, more than we can think about, which is ironic to me. So I think what the conclusion is, to me anyway, there's not a lot of people who have a lot of money, even though it seems like everybody's rich. And I think a lot of people look at it and they think, oh, everybody's richer than me. But fact of the matter is, no, everybody's not richer than you. And when you start thinking about this much money, you tend to say, man, it must be great to be rich and wealthy and not have to worry about looking at price tags or being able to buy any cool gadget that you wanted to see, or never have to worry about any bills at all. And you think that would be neat. And, just think if you won a $2 billion lottery, who would you give money to? Would you share with anybody? Would you tell anybody? Would you rather keep it to yourself? And if you think about it, what does it give you? What does all that money give you? And we've talked about this before. To me, it gives you freedom, financial freedom. And when I think about being rich, it's what it means to different people. But when I think about it, it means just not having to worry about paying the next surprise bill. You get a bill you don't expect, boom, you pay it, and not having to worry about it, and being able to be guilt-free about what you spend. And that's why we talk about what we do is to try to give people information so they can get to the same point.
So, though, when you look at these numbers, like when you look at the other chart and look at the net worth, but then you look at the average net worth of those were percentiles, by the way, the other chart,
right?
And this is just straight up average. It's interesting because, like you said, a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are not, doing well. They're not even in the category of being rich. A lot of people even making their net worth is below the poverty level. But what's so interesting, there's this book out called The Millionaire Next Door, and it did a research of millionaires and the research of people who are just, average Joe people who are out there working, middle class, low to middle class people. And it's flipped. Like you were talking about, just being able to buy the things you want when you want. The people who didn't have that much money compared to the rich people were doing all the things that you think rich people were doing. They were buying all reckless spending, buying a new car every 3 years, where the statistics shows that the average millionaire went to the mall maybe one time, had a car that was at least 9 years old. But people who didn't have that much money, who was in that lower status, they were, like I said, buying Mercedes and spending their money all on stuff. But they were living like rich people, and the rich people were living like poor people.
But it's kind of funny. When I was working for PPG, this was back in the 90s when we were bringing out transition lenses, the lenses that change colors. PPG started those, but they were actually thinking about going into the designer sunglass business. And I don't know what you know about Pittsburgh, but there's some pretty affluent suburbs, and the marketing folks was saying that those aren't the people that you target for that type of things, because they don't have a lot of disposable income. They have the big houses, they have the big cars, but they don't have a lot of disposable income because their income goes to paying for those things. And the market they were targeting were the middle class neighborhoods, where the houses in most cases were probably paid for. They were modest, but they were paid for. And those people, as you were describing, Bob, they lived modestly, but they had a lot of disposable income. And that kind of, go to what you're saying, is the people who don't live like they're rich, who typically are rich. And that's why they are rich, because they don't live like they're rich, and they don't end up filling up with things. They just have money.
So I want to make another point about this particular chart. Notice when you look at younger and under 35 or under, just $76,000 in net worth. But around 55 and 64, it really jumps up. And we know why, right? Because that's most people who have 401k plans. That has made the difference in their income. And I would like to go behind these numbers to see if that is true. But I think
I'm sure it is. I would bet that it is, Bob.
I think that's why it jumps up so much, because I know a lot of people who retiring with 1.2 million, and they're not super rich people. It's just that they were able to, like we always say, it's the long play and consistency, and that's the wonderful thing about employee plans like the thrift savings plan and teachers 403b. And we talk about this all the time, though. We talk about this all the time, to be consistent in the market. And that's what these employees plans did, because it made you put away money automatically every month. And so you were constantly doing dollar cost averaging and didn't even know it. So it really has helped a lot of people. So our theory that we talk about, it's tested and true. I mean, just go look at it. But I just want to talk about for a minute this though. Be careful what you wish for, okay? Because many wealthy people, are viewed as devils, money hungry, Scrooges, uh, exploitive. But this is one site that did a survey, said, do you think you can be rich and be a good person? Now, I've talked to many people about this, especially in the church sometimes, that make you feel bad about making money. But the answer was split. 44% of respondents said yes, they think they can be rich and be a good person, while 32% said no. Now, I found that pretty interesting. And we all know that you can be a jerk regardless of what your net worth can be. But it's strange that people, are sometimes jealous of something themselves they might want. I mean, I just see it many times with people. I look at my friends who done pretty well off, and some people be saying, "Oh, they high sedity," but they get. It's almost like when I was in school, though. If you got A's in DC public schools, they picked on you, right, for being smart. As I got older, I saw people be jealous of other people because they did well with their money, and it's really interesting that that happens. But there's a book out there called The Wealth Choice by Dennis Kimbrough. And by the way, he's an alpha man. And Dennis Kimbrough's book called The Wealth Choice, and it is such an intriguing book. And uh, our show, we always like to try to give you references, places to go to get information, and books to read. I would like to suggest you pick up this book, you all, The Wealth Choice by Dennis Kimbrough. And it says, despite high unemployment numbers and crushing poverty rates, a small but growing class of Black millionaires is bucking the odds and creating wealth. What can we learn from their success? Based on a 7-year study of 1,000 of the wealthiest African Americans, and what he did, he didn't study athletes and entertainers though, because that kind of skews things. These are people who, just everyday working people, middle class people, and true net worth. Not just counting your assets and not subtracting your liabilities, because that's what Donald Trump seems to do. He got assets, but they don't tell you about the liability. You got $2 billion in assets, but you got $3 billion in liabilities. Guess what? You're not wealthy. And the Wealth Choice offers a trove of sound and surprising advice about the climbing economic ladder, even when the odds seem stacked against you. Dennis Kimbrough shows how business leaders, entrepreneurs, and celebrities like Bob Johnson, Spike Lee, Steve Harvey, even Herman Cain, T.D. Jakes, Tyrese Gibson found their paths to wealth. What they did or didn't learn, and what they did or didn't learn about money early on, what they had to sacrifice to get to the top, and the role of discipline in managing their success. So that applies so much to what we're talking about here. And I just want to share one last thing that he talks about: 7 laws of wealth. First law is wealth begins in the mind but ends in the purse. The second law of wealth is decide that you will not be poor. The third law of wealth, believe in thyself when no one else will. The fourth law of wealth is to thy own self be true. Find your unique gifts. We've talked about that before, though. The fifth law of wealth is, how may I serve thee? Sixth law of wealth, thou shalt own thy own business. And the seventh law of wealth, make thy money grow. Just want to share that with y'all on talking about wealth and being rich.
And okay, but let's take a step back and think about folks, who want to be rich. And one of the things in the survey, it was asking people if they manage their product, if they were rich, how would they pretty much manage their money? And would they be, let's say, quote unquote, good people by investing in things that are good for the planet? And I think a lot of people would say that they would, but being the cynical person that I am, I really doubt that people would. But there's actually several ESG funds, which are funds that environmental, social, and governance, and trying to sustain the environment and things of that sort. And there's $330 billion invested in some ESGs. Now, it's hard to compare how it does versus a regular stock fund, but obviously it depends on who's picking, depending on what the market's doing. But it just surprised me that many people was really basically what you call putting their money where their mouth is, as far as being a conscious, wealthy person. So that number shocked me. I don't know how you feel about it, Bob, but I was just surprised that many people are investing in pretty much, let's call it the environment.
Or they call them socially conscious funds.
Right.
Because they also look at companies, what do you call it, employee, how you treat your employees, and all of those kind of things, companies that are fair. And so a lot of people, because when they started off, though, matter of fact, though, I was working in 1985 for a company that started the first social investment fund. It was at the Calvary Group, and they were the first ones. And people said, "Oh, people would never invest in that." And it was managed by a guy who's now he probably is a billionaire named John Rogers, a black guy who managed it. And here we go now. They got ESG, but the whole point with that study was also showing that, can you be a conscious person? Can you be other than just how they say most wealthy people are greedy and don't think about nobody? But my next topic, though, is do you want money to be your life's report?
Report card.
Because go ahead.
No, report card. Yeah.
Or what I say? Life's report card. Yeah. So is more really better is the question. Now, I try to raise, my kids, to be conscious about money and understand money, and understand, once you have an understanding how money works, then you are more able to enjoy being in the financial life stream, and you have way more choices. That's what I try to teach my kids, and not about keeping up with the Joneses. But wealth, however, is in the eye of the beholder. It's also a generational thing. Some people don't need to think about it because their whole family was raised with a silver spoon in their mouth. But it's hard to avoid, philosophical talks about rich and wealthy. When talking about, rich with my friend, I told him, I said, man, if he used to always say this, he said, Bob, if you look up, you'll find people who have more. And when you look down, you always find people with less. So be thankful for what you have and see how you can help those who are not so lucky. So one day we were talking about wealth, and I asked my friend how he felt being, one of the richest guys, in the Prince George's County area. And he basically told me that it's not about the money. He said to him it was about his legacy, what he's going to leave behind, And let's face it, you will never see a hearse with a luggage rack on it. You can't take it with you.
Yeah, and our topic is being wealthy versus being rich, and what's the difference? And it all comes down to where you put the extra zeros. You know, having a large banking account isn't the same as having zero regrets and focus on what brings you joy. And you know, when people talk about being rich versus being wealthy, a lot of people think they're the same, but there's some slight differences between the two. You can be rich and not be wealthy. You can be wealthy and not be rich. And the difference between the two comes down to where you have the most zeros. And when people think rich, they think assets, you know, and there's nothing wrong with growing assets. That's what we're talking about in the show, and that's what Bob and I've tried to do most of our lives is to add assets. But at the end of the day, nobody really cares about what you're worth or how much money you make. That's really meaningless. And they did a study that followed these people, these 700 teenagers throughout their lives, and they found that the happiest among those group had similar traits. Their mindsets were pretty much the same, even though their bank accounts was different. And it pretty much concluded that there was a distinct association between connections you had in life, your social circle, and how happy you were when you retired. And that was all based on the connections you made throughout your life. It had nothing to do with how much money you had. And it wasn't about the grind or the journey of how you built your bank account. It was more about the connections you made with the people around you. And those were quote unquote the happier people. Totally, you know, irrespective of how much they had in their bank account. It was all about how they felt, whether they had any regrets, and if they were doing things that they enjoyed, which I found to be interesting.
Very interesting. But in retirement, though, it's interesting. And a lot of people on here are either headed toward retirement or in retirement. And you young people, you will be headed this way sooner than you think. But this discussion turns to pleasures rather than wealth. Like I recently visited a friend of mine older friend who was in a retirement community. And not, once did anyone talk about their career, their worth, or what they did for a living, while they all had some level of rich to be living in this particular retirement community. But this wasn't the top of the discussion. They spent their time talking about hobbies, grandkids, and what they enjoy doing with their lives. So that's the difference between being rich and being wealthy. I know there's a discussion, there's a thin line, but being rich just means adding more zeros to your bank account. Being wealthy is about living your life with zero regrets, zero jealousy, and focusing on what things bring you joy and happiness. So many of us in the work world, we struggle so hard to do well, to provide a good living for our family, for our kids, and we sometimes, get burnt out. But in my experience, though, at least in my experience, a lot of people I've seen, the happiest people I know are wealthiest people, based on the definition I was just talking about, not just basing it on the dollars. And it has nothing to do with how much is in their bank accounts. So that's what we're saying. The difference between wealth and rich is a state of mind. One of my favorite phrases is money is a catalyst, because once you hit a certain income level, when you are living comfortable, money is just money. Me and Doe talked about that. You spend all your time, making sure you have a good nest egg so that you can retire and have, a good assets to be able to live off of. And you get to 75 and realize you don't even need that. All you're going to do is then decide on who you're going to leave it to. So, the opposite is true here too. If you are miserable earning $100,000 per year, And $5,000 isn't going to be suddenly make you a happy person, because if you're miserable, you're miserable. So obviously, this is only true when you're living at a level where earning enough meets your needs and your needs are being met. So it's easier said than done.
Yeah, and Bob, we come to the conclusion that money alone won't make you happy. I mean, we both know some pretty wealthy people who are just miserable, and they got money, but they're miserable. So we kind of concluded that money alone won't make you happy, and it's probably, if you're happy and earning a modest income, you'd still be happy if you were rich. And the same goes for someone who's miserable. They'd be miserable if they were middle class or if they were rich. It doesn't matter. So when it comes down to it, happiness isn't relying upon how big your bank account is. It takes effort to change your thoughts and find what truly makes you happy, and to focus on and prioritize your decision making around that. And prioritizing what makes you happy, it can lead you to retirement being truly wealthy. Okay, where you can focus on the connections and things that are so important. I mean, me personally, I've always been jealous of people who just love golf, and they play golf as much as they, because I don't have anything that I love as much as some of these people love playing golf. I wish I did, but it always makes me a little jealous. Wow, I know some folks who they'd rather play golf than do anything. And I think that's so neat that they found something that makes them that happy. I think that's cool.
But this is the one that gets me, though. This is the one that gets me with people who are working and they say, oh man, I don't want to retire because I don't know what I would do. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I used to work to the office next to you, and you used to disappear for 2 hours. You work out for no 2. It wasn't like you working straight 8 hours. You wasn't doing that for that work. So why would you just go at home and do the same thing? But at least you'd be at home. But I never could understood. I just don't know what I would do, like they working straight 8 hours. And I get it. Some people just want to get up and put the clothes on and go to work. So I'm not, trying to be, talk negative on those people. But I always wondered, like, you're not doing enough in that work, really. But so though, can money buy happiness? Does more money mean more happiness? Well, there was a new research called Settles Age-Old Debate. It's a new research, and it settles the old age debate. And it was led by the Princeton and University of Pennsylvania researchers, revisited the eternal question and reached a surprising conclusion, though. And I mean, this is pretty surprising, though, because the question that we talk about, would you rather be rich or rather be wealthy? Do making more money make you happy, or does making more money create problems and you end up being miserable? Well, let me tell you what the survey said, though. The survey said that the survey eventually arrived at a two-part hypothesis. The first one was, there's an unhappy minority whose unhappiness diminishes with rising income up to a threshold. Then it shows no further progress. Then the second hypothesis from the research was, in the happier majority, happiness continued to rise with income even in the higher range of incomes. So the final study results confirmed that generally more money means happier people, though, because I would, thought it was going to be different. A lot of people say, nah, more money, more problems. However, not. But the majority in this survey, which was a self-reported survey, the majority of the participants' happiness rose in a straight line with the income without stopping at any particular income threshold, like the first hypothesis. Among this group, roughly 30% of people were the happiest, and they actually experienced accelerating levels of happiness as earnings rose above $100,000.
Yeah, and Bobby, it goes on to say that the happiness keep rising up to an annual earnings of at least 500,000, and they didn't go above that to see if there was any emotional benefits for people above that income level. And so the surprising takeaway says it concludes people generally become more happier as they make more money. The happiest people by temperament tend to enjoy life as they climb the income ladder even more than the average person. And there's one big exception.
What's that?
It's people who are financially well off but unhappy. And that is some people. 20% of the people fell into this category. They had income over 100,000, and that didn't increase their happiness. And that one big exception is if you're rich and miserable, more money will not help you. which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because it gets to our point. Happiness is a state of mind, and it has nothing to do with money, even though a lot of people tie it to money. And when we talk about that, Bob, I think we have to separate people who are just surviving. Okay, that's a different animal. When you're talking about you need enough money to pay your bills or to buy medicine or to buy food, that's a different animal. But we're talking about people who are working, can pay their bills. It's not surprising that as you make more money, you can find more things that make you happy, that you enjoy doing, and you can take advantage of them and continue to be happy.
So it is so, after we can see this information, even we giving you empirical studies, that it's no right or wrong. There's, you could be happy and make a lot of money, or you could be unhappy and don't make a lot of money, or you could be happy, make a lot of money. Make a lot of money and don't be happy. And I hope you understand that in talking about this, it comes down to a state of mind, like what Dennis Kimbrough was saying. It starts with the mind, but it's in the pocket, and that's why we wanted to talk about this today, because, and I like to throw this out to our viewers. What do you all think? Give us some comments. Do you think, because a lot of y'all been worked a long time, and are you happy with where you are with the income? Do you think that making more money made you happier, or does it even matter?
Bob, we talked about it a little bit. I think when you start with zero, as both of us did, I think it's easier to enjoy having money, because I've been broke and happy. When I first started working, I was happy as can be. And when I first got married, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were happy as hell. It's not money. I think it's more your state of mind. And I think if you've had zero and were happy, it's easier to have money and still be happy, and continue on. But I think if you come into money and you take it for granted, I think it'd be hard to go to being broke. I wouldn't want to go to being broke, but I wouldn't go kill myself if the next day I woke up and didn't have any money. Hey, I've been broke before.
Hey, dope. So, okay, so I hear what you're saying, right? And to what you're saying, this is what one of the top psychologists would say. Stop that guy there going foolishly. Nick, well, if you go be broke, I'm just broke again. I'm happy being broke. Just stop that foolishness, dope.
I don't want to be broke. Don't get me wrong. But I honestly believe I could handle being broke, because I've been broke. But I think if you haven't, I think it's a more daunting task. If you haven't,
I was just being funny, but I was just trying to be. But dope. Well, for some people, they can't go back. I've seen some people who was chasing that carrot so much, that was climbing that corporate ladder so much, and when they got busted down, and I'm talking about, they came from being down low, and they were struggling so hard to keep from going back there. I seen it take some people out. That's why I said, yeah.
It's funny. I heard a comedian talking. He says women have that same mindset. Like if they date a guy who has a car, then they can't date a guy who don't have a car after that. If they date a guy who has his own place, then they can't date a guy who lives with
Well,
his mother.
that makes sense, though.
It is hard to go back. It is hard to go back. No question.
Yeah. Because same theory.
Yeah,
If you date a fine dude and you end up with an ugly guy, it's kind of hard to stay with that ugly guy when you used to. But come on, y'all, put some comments in the box. Oh, okay. Angela said, I agree with your statement, Dope. Oh, okay. You agree with Dope. So how do y'all feel about, wealth? Can you live with it or without it? I know a lot of people say they can live without it, but no, I'm telling you, I don't want to go back. I don't.
And the other thing, I think as you get older, if you've been sick, where money becomes meaningless, I think that puts a different light on it too. That because when you're sick, how much money you have don't mean a thing. All you can think about is feeling better. You're not thinking about how much money you have because your money's doing the best it can do, and it can't do any better than the doctors you have. I just think a lot of things in life shed a different light on being rich. And as you get our age, to me, I mean, health is much more important than money at this point, obviously.
So, so last night, we had this group called Married Fellas, right? And to be in this group, you had to be married 20 years or more. And believe it or not, the guys, I'm the oldest, but I got the least amount of years, and they're the youngest, and they got the most years. And one of the conversations we were having was, is why certain Black people are at the level they are, whether it be the poverty level. Is it because is it their fault? Or is it because their mothers and fathers were bad spenders, was bad with money? And should they be blamed? Or was it the man, inequities and job, now unfairness? And then one side said, but nah, once you get to a certain age, shouldn't you understand right from wrong and be able to have the desire to want to do better, to go out there and try to, provide for your family and save your money and build your assets? But the question was, yeah, but if you never had that, can you really be fair and say that person should be in a position to do that? Like what you just said with us, though. I didn't have no super gurus telling me, how to make it. So, do you understand where I was going with that, though?
Yeah, and I think there's just so many variables involved, and there's a lot of blessings. I think in my case, I just had a lot of things. I was around a lot of people who helped me. I had just a lot of support, and things could have gone wrong a whole lot of times, but they didn't. And so sometimes it's circumstance, sometimes it's luck or blessing, whichever you believe, and sometimes you just make bad decisions, and they, you reap the consequence of that bad decision. But I've made bad decisions, but I guess I make more good decisions than bad decisions.
So, what about your upbringing, though? As far as you having that state of mind, because I remember pulling into the parking lot at the FDIC, and this guy was, literally crying and going off, and I knew him. I'm like, "Oh man, you okay?" He said, "Oh, I can't believe they hit my car," and I thought his car was all messed up. And all he had was a scratch on it, but he was so taken, and like what you say, if you've never been down, if you didn't come from meager means, it's kind of hard when you don't. But when you have so many opportunities, which actually creates the wealth gap, it's not because some Black people didn't know. It is about lack of information, don't get me wrong. And it also is about misinformation, but it's also about having the options and the opportunities to be able to better your condition. So it's not with everybody, but with all of that, though, at the end of the day, it comes back to your state of mind, because most financial decisions, and really just decisions, period, are a lot of times made behaviorally. If you were used to, spending money and not paying attention, 9 times out of 10, you're going to make bad financial decisions. But if you have good habits and good values, and then the next thing that comes into place, and these two different things, this is a whole different thing. Though it is very hard to enjoy your life if you don't have peace in your life. And that goes to me with how happiness comes about. But we got a lot of people making comments. Now say I don't think good health and peace of mind contribute to wealth. Oh, that's pretty deep. Garnett says, I don't put value on material things. I go with that. So, I mean, in facts, more facts, I know both sides of the coin. That's what Garnett said, meaning, she knows what it is like to not have, and she knows what it is now to have. But we say this all the time. It's kind of hard to enjoy your wealth if you don't have good health. I mean, that's kind of hard, because I know a bunch of people who got a bunch of money, but money can't buy them their health back. And I'm sure that's probably what Now is talking about, because it's not tied to your wealth. And that's the point. It is not tied to your wealth. You can have a lot of money. Our statement, you can be rich, you can be poor. If you're miserable, you're just a miserable person. Bottom line. So let's go to the takeaways and the summaries. Let's go to the video, and let's sum up what we talked about, because we had a lot of good stuff there, by the way. Had a lot of good stuff. Let's go there. So, more money doesn't necessarily mean more problems. I remember, Jay-Z's record got 99 problems, but ain't one. So more money doesn't necessarily mean more problems, but I'd rather have more issues and money than to not have money and have more issues.
Well, and as I said earlier, I think it's really important to find what makes you happy, and do that. But a lot of people chase money thinking that's going to make them happy, and money in it of itself probably will not make you happy. So you really have to search your soul and find out what makes you happy, and find a way to do that.
Define where you want to be. Now, there's a lot in that statement. Define where you want to be means, like, uh, set some goals. First of all, have a vision. Because they said the worst thing that a blind man not being able to see is a person have eyes but don't have a vision. You got to determine where you want to be. Both what I said before, both with your values. What's more important to you? Is your kids graduating from college more important? If you have good retirement plan, is that more important? Do you want to leave your kids? You got to really define where you want to be and think about those things. Got to have a vision, because a ship without a rudder will end up on the rocks. You got to have, goals, and we talk about that all the time.
And once you figure out where you want to be, and you have your vision and your goals, you got to have a plan to get there. And we talk about this all the time. You got to have a plan that makes sense, that's doable, and lays out how you're going to get to where you want to be.
And lastly, and we say it time and time again, but we say it in different terms, but happiness is a state of mind. Me and Doe talk about how you handle your money is a state of mind. How you manage your money is a mindset. But also, how you get happiness you can't wait for somebody to give you happiness. I mean, I've said this before, though. You can't make nobody happy. But one thing, I know how to make me happy, but you can't make no one else happy. Only you can make you happy. I've seen people, strive, giving things and gifts and cars and diamonds and pearls, trying to make their wives happy, but you really can't make no one happy. You make yourself happy. Just like they really say, you can't motivate nobody. You can give them terms and tools, but people really motivate yourself. So happiness is a state of mind. So we hope y'all like this show. Modestine said, money can't make you happy. Angela Grove Davis says, having options is a plus, but money is not the be all of happiness. And I'm glad everybody feel like what we saying, Dope. And thanks now said thanks, Dope and Bob, for your passion. Appreciate that. We want to again thank everybody for tuning in, as you always do. We got a lot of people on it again tonight, though. As always, we get more and more new people. For thanks to new people that's come on. Really appreciate you. And how we always end, we like to give a shout out for all those people that's been on. My brother Carl Chapman, thank you for being there. Joanne Skinner, Modestine, our regulars, love y'all being there and your comments. Now, Dodie, love you so much. Now, thank you for your comments. My sister Linda, and Linda was asking, is this March 30th? So some people be getting the archives and think it's today. But a Modestine answered her early on. That's why I didn't answer back to you. TheNoteExperience.com. Rodney Madison Sr., how you doing, brother man? Glad you on. Garnett Nickens, thank you for being on. My wonderful other sister, my second sister in as far as birth, Gloria Kenza Browner, thank you for being on, Glow. And did I say Joanne? I got Joanne Garnett, Modestine, Angela Grubbs Davis. What's up, Angie? Glad you on. And that's it. Thank you all. Okay, hey, Carl put a comment in there. He said, family and friends make me happy. Hey, to God be the glory. So thank you, everyone. Dope, do you have any closing remarks?
No, I think we hit it. Good brother.
Yeah, so like we say, please put in the comment box if you have any comments or what we're talking about, or if you have a perspective, and especially if you have some topics that you would like for us to talk about. Please put them in. No topic is not a good topic, because we all are seeking ways to better ourselves and better our financial position. So we open to all kinds of thoughts. And if y'all have some books out there that you read on personal financial management, share them with us too, and we share them with everybody else. Always share this information. We're going to be here every Thursday. This is our 94th show, Dope. So thank everybody for tuning in. And we see you next week, same bat channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, The FITT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow. Thank y'all very much and have a good rest of the week.